Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger, my friends. This is 10 essential gameplay tips for you to know in Mortal Kombat 1. So Mortal Kombat 1, there's a lot of interesting things, a lot of interesting mechanics, and this video is going to help you out with some of the more esoteric stuff. We have beginner guides on the channel as well. You can find those linked in the video description if you want to check those out. And we're going to be covering quite a few topics here, so there will be timestamps for you to skip ahead to whatever makes sense for you. And otherwise, with all the gameplay systems in Mortal Kombat 1, let's start with tip number 1. Now, our first gameplay tip here is all about wave dashing. So in Mortal Kombat, you can dash, sure enough, right? You can back dash, you can forward dash. And the thing about wave dashing specifically, it's an easy enough concept, is Mortal Kombat allows you to cancel your dashes out. So normally, most of the time, if you're canceling a dash, is to do some kind of attack, right? Juggling, combos, general offense. Very easy to cancel a dash into attack. So wave dashing, though, what is different here is it's purely for the movement, to move faster than you normally otherwise could. So say here, we can dash, and when we dash, we do have a kind of fixed end to the dash animation, right? Before we can go into our next one. Wave dashing is simply the concept. It's hit block at the end of your dash. And what it'll do is cancel out your dash ending animation with the block. And then you let go of block, and then you dash again, and you kind of keep going. So say here, from the end of the screen to the enemy here, that's a regular dash. And Johnny's got a pretty good dash, like admittedly, right? But he can go even faster if he wave dashes. So here's Johnny doing 2 regular forward dashes. Here is Johnny doing 2 wave dashes. And, you know, once again, Johnny has a good dash, right? But a wave dash is just a little bit quicker. We get most of the forward momentum, and then we cancel the ending frames with the block, let go block, and just simply dash again. And when done correctly, you can use it to kind of blaze your way across the screen. Now, to note, not everyone wave dashes the same. Some characters are better at it than others by design, built into their dash. But basically, it's really as simple as just dash, block, dash again. It's just a bit faster than regular dashing, especially helpful when you're just looking to close the gap and get a quick attack in. Like if I'm looking to dash in and get a forward 3 with Johnny. So quick and simple technique, yet quite important to learn. Now, this next tip is about blocking and minding blocking as much as you might otherwise do. So blocking, you gotta do it, otherwise you'll get beat up, right? That's fighting game 101. But one thing about blocking to note here, and why you might want to take your turn back earlier than normal, is how meter is built in this game. So basically everything you do in this game builds a meter, right? That's how it is. The one thing to note here while on offense is generally the person getting beat up gets more meter than the person doing the hits, as you can see here. So Kung Lao already has 2 meters. I, on the other hand, do not. However, this dynamic changes while blocking. The person who is doing the offense is the one that gets all the meter. So when you are blocking, you get nothing. But the person doing the attacks gets enhanced meter. They get more than they normally would. So let's look at this string for Raiden here. This basic string, look how much meter we gain, right? A little bit, not too much. However, while the opponent is blocking, as you can see here, that's a good deal more. A good deal more. Once again here, not only are we getting more, Kung Lao here is getting literally nothing. So beware on that point, and specifically certain people might tailor certain block strings where they know you're going to block, and they're going to build maximum meter on you. So in this sequence here, I know you're going to block. So you know what? We're going to do this here. And now look at the meter I gained during this sequence here. I gained almost a full bar on 1 block string, which is crazy, right? So you got to watch out for that. Defense is good. You have to block, but just keep in mind, if you think you have the opportunity to steal a turn, definitely take it while you can, because otherwise the enemy's going to gain a lot of meter at your expense. Now, one thing that's quite important in this game is the frame data, and the game gives you all the frame data very easily. So go into your options here, practice settings, turn on the frame data, and then you can see everything live. So if you want to know how fast the move is, simply do it. It'll tell you everything, right? So say stand 1 here, Li Mei, 7 frame startup, you got the data. Stand 4, 10 frames, right? And knowing the numbers in fighting games is actually pretty important, honestly, right? I know it's not as fun to learn, but it'll definitely win you games is the big thing. Because knowing all the numbers, how fast your move is, and especially how negative or positive your move is if it gets blocked is very key. So let's use positive. So Li Mei, back 3, 17 frames. mid. And 17 frames is not a particularly fast move, but it's not fast for a reason. Because if you do the whole string here, back 3, 4, this is a block advantage. 7 frames of block advantage. Most moves, the majority of moves in this game are some kind of negative. Even if not necessarily punishable, you are at slight disadvantage when in front of your foe. This move gives you big advantage in front of your foe. And 7 frames is a lot. For the most part, with very rare exception, 7 frames is the fastest move you can do in the game. So if I know I'm +7, and say I'll do Lime, I'll do back 2 afterwards, which is 12 frames of startup, right? So I'll do this, I'm +7, then do back 2. That gives us a gap of 5 frames. And I'll tell you right now, there is no move in the game that is 5 frames. So that means literally nothing can get through this. If they hit any kind of button, they will get blown up. So here we are, the enemy Lime is doing this to us here, so practice in action. And try as I might here, I'll try to stick out a button and I'm gonna get blown up. There is nothing I can do, there is no button I can press that'll be fast enough because the numbers show that simply the math isn't there. So learning the frames in that way is to your benefit. Now let's look at a different move. Forward 4. So forward 4 is a low, and it says here block advantage is -11. So to know what's punishable in this game, simply take the number that's negative and remove 1 digit, and then you can punish it. So if the move says -11, then a move that is 10 frames or less can punish it. Therefore, say this move here, -23, so any move that was 22 frames or faster could punish it. So once again here to put this into practice, since that move is -11, stand 2, which is 9 frames, so faster, is a punish. And this is how it works across the board. This is universal. So just take the number you see, subtract 1. If that move has that startup, it'll be a punish as long as it's in range, naturally. But having the frame data here, and of course too, frame data, you can see this all in the move lists. At the time of this recording, a couple things are incorrect. That'll be patched, but you can learn all the numbers here, and the numbers tell the story. It'll tell you when it's your turn. It'll tell you when it's their turn. It tells you when you should be able to press a button or at least attempt to. It'll tell you when you really need to start blocking and don't you dare try to hit anything and just see if you can survive the storm, right? The numbers tell the story of the game, so learning the frames is important. And thankfully here, all the frames are here for you to view, handy in the in-game frame counter, so make sure to use it. Our next tip is about cameos themselves and about ambush assists. So there's 2 kinds of assist calls. There's summons, where you strike a pose and your cameo comes out and does whatever they're going to do. And there's ambushes where you just hit the button and that's it. You could be doing anything. You could be jumping in the air. You could be doing a special move. It doesn't matter. Ambush assists, they just call out and come out when you hit the button, which is great. Now, I know a lot of the obvious applicable situations are combos, and sure enough, that's a really good use of them. So let's use an ambush call example here that'll give us both safety and a combo. So Ashra has this move here, forward 3. And forward 3 is a big old overhead. And by herself, she can cancel into it, although canceling into it sight unseen could be a very bad proposition because you'll get blown up on block, right? And also, it's not the most safe move on block itself. You have to space it really good. But what if we removed all the downside of the risk and kept all the upside of the benefit? That's where our boy Goro comes into play. So what Goro's going to do, we're going to do this and call Goro. And if we get the hit, great. If we get the hit, guess what? It's combo time. There we go. Good little combo, right? You can get more advanced, but you get the idea. But now here's the real benefit. If Goro gets called and say it was blocked, if you look at the frame data here, then we have advantage frames now. So before, when we'd be pretty negative, now we have a good deal of advantage. So now you have to keep worrying and keep guessing, when before Ashra, she'd have to like kind of hold back for a little bit, right? So that is another just very powerful use of an ambush assist. We get all the combo ability in the world, which is great, but we also get utility of, if our move, is negative on block, say sometimes even straight up full punishable, the assist, the ambush call, can cover it and keep us safe. Ambush assists in a lot of ways are just the most powerful assists in the end, just because since you can call them whenever, they have the least amount of restrictions. Like the missile call here for Sector. It's a missile, so I can use it to, say, complement my zoning game here for Rain. While I'm shooting my own projectiles, I can have him also shooting his missile and amplify my game. Or it can be very good for pressure. So while I know you're knocked down here, I can chase you down while the missile is called and then You know the missile's there. You gotta block. And since I know you gotta block, maybe I'll go for an overhead. Maybe I'll go for a low, right? So you really have to watch out. The ambush assist is so versatile, and if you have a character that has a good ambush assist, you gotta learn how to use it correctly. So one very important thing to know about cameos is the various moves of the cameos have different recharge rates. Even though everything costs 1 bar, everything does not recharge the same way from that 1 bar. So let's use Kung Lao's hat here for a second here. Kung Lao's hat actually recharged at a very fast rate. So this is a move that is effectively spammable and by design, right? They want you to use this move a lot. It's a good replacement projectile for characters that don't have great projectiles, and it's just a good tool to use all in all. So fast recharge rate, spam it all you want. Conversely, his spin. So his spin is a full-on combo launcher, and obviously is very powerful because of that. So as you can see here, the recharge is happening very slowly because this move is not designed to be spammed like say the low hat is, because it's a good deal more powerful. So on paper, they both cost half your meter, but it's not quite just what you see, right? So the recharge rate tells a very big story. Also, how moves interact with the recharge rate depends on which move is the last move you did. So once again, low hat here recharges incredibly quick, as you can see here. But say we do our spin, and you know, that slower recharge rate, and then we do low hat, which is very fast recharge rate. And you can see here, low hat ain't quite recharging as fast as it used to, right? And we can wait out the whole bar, even past when spin itself would have recharged fully, right? So if you did a slower recharge move and then did a faster recharge move, you'll still overall keep the slower recharge. Only once you fully go back to regular will you get that fast recharge. So keep that in mind. If you are doing a slow recharge move and then you want to do something that's more fast and more spammable, you're going to be locked into the slow recharge. So in the case of Kung Lao specifically, if you love that hat spam, beware doing spin in a combo, because if you want to keep that hat spam going, you're effectively locked out of it till your bar is completely refilled. Now, another very important part of this game is to learn when enough is enough, and you just have to take your turn back, right? And that comes to the fact that obviously in this game, there's many various strings of attacks, and many of those strings of attacks have just a little bit of a hole in the offense. Like, let's take this string from Raiden here. So there's 3 hits and it's completely safe. Like, there is no punishing this move as it stands, right? But the one thing is, between the second and third hits, there is just the tiniest little gap. Not enough for you to stick a button through. Like, if I try to punch him back or something, I am going to lose every time. But there is a gap big enough for you to armor through. So if you're willing to spend that little bit of meter and you know and have the foreknowledge of, you know, this string has this gap in it, you can absolutely blow them up for it. And some of the exceptionally powerful strings have a much bigger gap. So Raiden forward 3-4, this guy here, double overhead, full combo starter, very powerful, right? And between the first and follow-up hits, there's a gap. And yes, you can armor through it, but you also don't have to. The gap is actually large enough between the follow-up hits, you can actually stick a regular button in. So there we go, right? We punished the whole string. So instead of letting him bully us, since we know the weakness of this string, we called it out at the exact right time and stopped it. So I guess the question is, how do we learn about these gaps? Because obviously, if you don't know, you don't know. It's actually an easy answer to do that. So we're going to use our training settings here, go to the opponent type, turn on reversal mode, and honestly, whatever it is, it doesn't particularly matter, whatever it is. Like, it could be an armored move, but it doesn't matter. We just need to prove that there's a gap. So what happens here was when you turn on the setting, you turn on any reversal period, if there's any kind of gap, even if it's a singular frame, there's any kind of gap, the CPU will do whatever move they're programmed to do right through it. So we learn here, Johnny, 2-1-2, there's a gap there. Stand 4-4, there's a gap there. And there's a gap there for very good reason, because this string is plus 15 on block. So generally, some of the more powerful strings have a weakness associated with it like this. So say for Johnny, 2-1-2, there's a gap, but 2-1-4, that's airtight. So you didn't know, now you know. and we can learn a lot about the various characters through this, and it's very important and will help dictate the pace of your various matchups against the whole cast. Now, this one here is important for both offense and creating all sorts of setups and knowing your rights, I guess, on defense. So in this game, legitimately, it's trivial to force low and overhead mix-ups, right? That's part of the Mortal Kombat magic, I guess. But the thing is, you can force a low and an overhead mix-up at the same time in a lot of ways in this game, thanks to a bunch of the cameos. And specifically, you can absolutely have the low and the overhead hit on the exact same frame, which nominally, and especially in older games back in the day, would mean you're basically screwed. Like, because you can't block low and overhead on the same frame. You just can't. So this game has what we call unblockable protection. So if you're in a situation where the low and the overhead would effectively hit within 1 or 2 frames of each other, if you block the first one, you will block the other one. So here, Reiko is going to go for a low overhead setup. So if I just crouch block this one, because the low will hit first, I will get hit, because there is a small gap in between them. Not a huge gap. Like, you have to basically know exactly the timing to block this successfully. It's quite difficult. I can only do it because I'm in training mode, right? Much the same, now he's going to go overhead low, right? So if I'm a little slow and just block the overhead, I will get hit by the low, because there's a little gap between them. Now this setup right here, you can see I crouch blocked it just fine, right? And I'm actively crouch blocking while it says overhead, because they're hitting within basically a frame of each other. That gives me the unblockable protection. So this will allow me to block the overhead even though I'm crouch blocking. Now in this scenario, I have to block the first one correctly. Since the low hits first by like a frame, since I didn't block the low, I still get hit. So you still have to correctly guess in the scenario which one will connect first, but you don't have to go like within the frame of blocking one or the other. So just keep that in mind. If you're in practice mode and you're trying to create all these cool like low-high, high-low setups, all that kind of stuff, keep in mind if they're too tight to each other, too close to each other, the opponent will get to block both for free. As long as they get the first one correctly, they'll automatically block the other one. Next tip, let's talk down one, your basic ducking punch. Now, if you've ever played any Mortal Kombat game, since like Mortal Kombat 9, you know down one is everyone's best friend. Why? It's generally tied for your fastest attack you can do at all. Everyone loves fast attacks. And 2, since it's a crouching move, it will go underneath all sorts of highs, and that's going to be great. Like, let's look at this scenario here. So General Shao is going for back 2, which is actually advantage on block. It's his turn nominally. He's +3, and then going for stand 2-2, which is 8 frames. So there's only a 5-frame gap in between there, which means normally, like if I just try to hit any normal standing button, I'm just going to lose. End of story. But 2-2 is a high. So even though I'm at frame disadvantage, I can poke you out, right? So this is a core concept of the game, and absolutely you do need to use and abuse this. 100%. I'm about to tell you something bad, but you still have to do this. But I need you to know what's bad about that now. So what's bad about it now in Mortal Kombat 1 specifically compared to, say, Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat X, Mortal Kombat 11, is the trusty old down 1. While it's still advantage on hit, it is now punishable on block. Before it would be negative, sure, right? But it is now punishable on block. So it's -8. And if you watched earlier in the video, we're talking about the numbers and all that. -8 means one specific thing. It means it is now punishable by other down ones. So if we block it here, punish right there. Big bold letters here on the side, right? Punish. So now we get the down 1 jab in. It is now our turn for frame advantage, our turn for offense, all that fun stuff. Now you don't necessarily get the world because it's still a crouching move, right? If they remain crouching, 7-frame standing move is not going to work, right? So it still has to be a down 1 punish, but it is basically a way to make sure whose turn it is. Now, if your down 1 gets blocked, it is definitively not your turn anymore. Before, your down 1 could get blocked, and since it wasn't punishable, sure, you lost your turn on paper, but since it wasn't punishable, I could do this and then immediately go for like an armored reversal or something, right? Take that turn back even though it wasn't my turn to begin with because I got blocked. But this now, it is actually punishable by down 1. So every time you block that down 1, you down 1 them back, and then it is definitively your turn. It's a pretty big departure from the last few Mortal Kombat games, so it might take a while to get used to, but it's a pretty big deal. Now, in this tip, we're going to talk the magic number of this game, and that is -7, specifically -7 on block. So -7 on block, the reason why it's the magic number in this game is because that is effectively, with rare exception, the maximum negative you can be and still be safe on block. The standard fastest move in the game is 7 frames, but since 7 frames is the exact same startup, that means we don't get a punish. So that means, once again, you're safe. Now, you still have to worry if I'm going to throw you. You try to mash buttons, you're probably going to lose because you're -7, right? But this is the magic number where I can still attempt to go for something offensive and not get guaranteed punish after the fact. So it very much behooves you to go into your move list here and see what moves are -7, because those are the ones that you really are going to abuse on offense. -7 or less. If it's higher than -7, like say Kung Lao here, -19, right? That's definitely a higher number. If it's higher than -7, then you're absolutely in punishable territory across the board because everyone has at least one 7-frame normal. So keep it in mind, -7 is basically as close as you can get to the edge without going over. You'll have to start blocking, you'll have to play defense, but there's no guaranteed punish unless. Enter a few privileged characters, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, Li Mei. Li Mei has a 7-frame special move, which lets her punish moves like that due to reversal timing. Check the main beginner's guide to go more in depth on that. And Liu Kang, Kung Lao, due to them being Shaolin, I guess, have 6 framers. So once again here, this move Shao Kahn, 7 frames negative, and we cannot punish it with a standard stand 1 7-frame move, right? But since we're blessed enough to have that 6-framer, that will be a punish. And since it's a punish, all the associated stuff with that comes there, right? So over 30% damage. So this is more just, I guess, PSA, if anything. Those 3 characters specifically, watch out, because they could punish things that are normally not punishable. And it's very much by design, it's part of their character toolset, right? So against, say, a Kung Lao, you have to be extra careful which moves you're doing. Because, as we talked about earlier in the video, it behooves you to know the frame data on many moves. And if Kung Lao knows the frame data, he might be able to punish you on moves that no other character can. So watch out. Now, we're going back to cameos for this one, because cameos obviously are quite good in this game, right? It's kind of the point. But one thing about many cameos is they can make basic building blocks of the games much more effective, like the basic throw. No matter what character you're playing, no matter what archetype they are, everyone needs to do basic throws. It's just how the game works, right? And some characters with some cameos can make your basic throw have a lot more teeth than the usual 11% damage. Like, say, Liu Kang. So, since the end of his throw, he's no longer attached to the enemy. That means, say, a helpful Kung Lao teleport can come in, snatch him up, and bring him up to the enemy. So our throw just got a lot more deadly. Since it's so much more damage than normally what we would get, even though it scales, obviously enough, that could be the round, right? So now that basic throw just got a lot more deadly thanks to the fact our cameo can change the rules of how the basic throw works. And conversely, certain cameos can rip you out of your own throw and you can get more damage. Certain throws guarantee assists. So Li Mei can give Goro a guaranteed stomp. So all you have to do is wait for the right moment to call Goro, summon him, and the animation will play out. As soon as they wake up, Goro's exactly there, right? And you might say, well, wait a second, can I do delayed wake up and get around that timing? Sure, but you can also delay your Goro call by a split second as well to get it, right? So guaranteed damage is pretty fun. Another interesting one, Katana and Cyrax. So not necessarily big damage, but due to how the animation plays out, it's absolutely to your benefit. You get a little bit more damage than you otherwise would on the throw, but it resets the enemy standing with you in big frame advantage in front of their face. So for visual reference, after this, we'll both jump at the same time. And see that the enemy Katana jumps just a little bit faster, right? So she's positive a decent amount of frames. So now if she were to say go for back 2 right after the fact, there's nothing I could press to stop her. Like, it's not possible. So in this situation, not only does she get the throw, she gets a few percent more, but she's rest assured now she's going first no matter what and very close to the enemy. Sometimes it's not always just about the raw damage numbers, right? It's about creating situations. And for Katana, this is a very interesting situation to be in. And that is 10 tips for Mortal Kombat 1. It's a very interesting game to say the least. Obviously, there's a lot of classic Mortal Kombat isms in the game, but due to the cameo roster especially, man, we're going to be figuring out new things for months, maybe years to come. Like, this game is very wild, and that said, I hope this tip guide has helped you understand the game a bit better, given you some ideas to work with, and hopefully it will increase your enjoyment of the game. All that said, we are now at the end of the video. Check the channel for other guides, other fighting game content, and until then, well, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some Mortal Kombat.